friend to the stream. Oh my goodness, I am so excited to be with you all today. If you are watching, whether you are watching now or maybe you're going to come on and watch it later, today we are talking about working with volunteers. And I cannot think of a better group of amazing people to get together. Today, we have my brother in Christ and dynamic family ministry leader, Andre Jones. He is here with us today. Don't be fooled by his serious demeanor. He's hilarious. And he will let you dance and run amok in his church. Super
Oh, I
excited.
should show them that video.
I know. I was like, okay. I mean, just amazing type guy. And I had the most amazing opportunity to hang out with our friend Andre recently. Super excited. But one of my favorite parts was really being able to observe how amazing of a leader that Andre is. And I'm like, oh man, I gotta get him to come on one of these webinars to equip the body of Christ. Of course, Dale Hudson. Everyone knows Dale is my go-to. I love me some Dale Hudson. When I started children's ministry, Dale, I'm not saying you're 100. I'm just saying when I started children's ministry.
54.
Yeah.
I mean, just all of the wisdom and the knowledge, and it helped me to excel. So I am just super humbled to have Dale here with us. And not to mention, I have been trying. Let me tell you something. When you recognize that someone is dynamic as Danielle Bell, like you just kind of follow them like secretly, but you don't say anything. And then finally, I am able to collaborate and do something with her. And I was so excited
because we're right here in the same state. Come on.
Oh my gosh. And I didn't even know that. I mean, I am just like super pumped and excited. I know that she is a dynamic leader. I watch you on social media. I know I've watched you behind the scenes on so many of the amazing projects, but I do not want you guys to lose any credibility with my lack of introducing anybody. So you guys, if you are here today, we are talking about working with volunteers. So I am so excited to jump into this. But before we jump into this, I want you guys to kind of go around. Dale, I'm going to start with you, Danielle, and then Andre, just to share a little bit really quickly about what you do and just a little bit of your story and how you're connected into the amazing world of children's ministry.
Do you want me to go first?
Absolutely.
I was going to start off, since there's three of us from Alabama, just say roll tide.
No. Sorry, Andre.
It's boring.
I don't know, like
It's boring being an Alabama fan because you just always win. Just nothing changes. You always win, and that's boring.
Stop it.
We're tired of winning all the time. So I been in kids ministry for 32 years full time. So 28 of those years I was at local churches from California to Vegas to South Florida, served in kids ministries full time. 4 years ago, God said, okay, I want you to go to the Big C church. I had traveled and spoke some as much as I could, but when you're a full-time children's pastor at a place, you can't be gone, but so many weekends. Yep. So it was just the right time. And so we started building children's ministries, what we call our ministry. And we do coaching groups. We do writing. We do volunteer training. A lot of times, like this past weekend, I'll go to the church. It's Saturday, I'll do a volunteer training. And then Sunday morning in the adult service, I will share about the next generation, why it's so important to reach the next generation. So do that a lot on the weekends, but I love it. I do miss my volunteers and the families and stuff, but I know this is what God has me to do, at this minute. So that's what we do.
It's amazing. Danielle, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, well, I'm going to say War Eagle, but I am in my 25th year full-time children's ministry. I'm a Tennessee girl, not a Tennessee fan. So I was at a church there for 15 years, and God called me to Alabama, and I've been at the current church 9 years. And I love kids. I love families. Sometimes I get in trouble for when a family comes to visit, talking to the kid more than the parent, I'm just like, come on, So I truly enjoy, like, kids never never get on my nerves. And in the last couple of years, I guess 6 years, I adopted a little girl through foster care. So I'm a single mom. So I have a whole new appreciation. Like, before I'm like, why can't you just get to church? Now I'm like, you made it here. I'm so proud. So a whole new insight into that. So yeah, I get to do that, and I write some curriculum on the side, but it's the best being with the families here.
I love it. Danielle, I have to tell you, you do look like the most amazing children's ministry leader on the planet when I just watch you on social media. I'm like, oh man, she's so much fun.
Well, golly, you're very kind. Maybe I don't know, but I have fun.
Super wonderful. Andre, tell us a little bit about yourself.
First of all, I feel left out that I'm not in Alabama. I don't know if there's any ties there. You're in Alabama, and y'all guys are there. So I'm gonna introduce myself or put myself into you guys' Alabama family somehow, some way. But I'm in Plano, Texas. Next gen for kids, students, and young adults at One Community Church. In all honesty, I should be on the other side of this webinar learning. So I don't know how in the world I got here. Maybe I thought the email was an accident. So I had to double check it a couple of times.
That's why I'm here.
Right. No, you've got the. But on staff 5 years, doing kids ministry for 10 years, married, 2 kids, a guinea pig, and a dog, and absolutely love what I do. And man, super excited just to even be here. So Esther, thanks for thinking of me, inviting me, and it not being a spam robot. So thank you.
It was so funny. I have to tell you guys that there was one moment in my life, it was so funny, that like Tony Evans was like sending me messages on like Instagram, and I was so excited. I'm like, oh my goodness. And it took a while for my husband to say, you're being catfished. When Tony asked me for money, I was like, wait a second. So I am humbled now, even to be able to have you guys know Cynthia, to have the amazing opportunity to work with her. It just cracks me up because it always reminds me of that story. But I'm super excited. We are going to jump right into this today, guys, because I know that you're antsy to learn about working with volunteers. So I want to jump into the first question. Andre, I'm going to have you go first. Danielle, and then Dale, I want you to chime in after for our first question. But I want to really dig into a healthy volunteer culture, because I know a lot of us, we having volunteers is not new to us. Everyone knows you need volunteers to make things function and operate. But what does it look like to have a healthy children's ministry volunteer culture? What does that look like, Andre?
Yeah, absolutely. I think number one is when people come into town that they do right and they make you look like you know what you're doing. And so thank you, team, for when Esther came and visited. But I truly think a healthy volunteer culture is where life change happens, right? And so nobody's just checking a box. They're not just coming to do a role, but their lives are being impacted, because ultimately that's going to help those kids, those parents, those students. And so are we creating an opportunity for the volunteer to grow first, so that they're able to then do their roles effectively? Nobody just wants to come check the box. And so how are you helping them grow? How are you helping them to develop in their Christian walk? And we like to ask our team, who's different because they spent time with you? And so that's it.
I think, Andre, I have to say really quick, I think one of the favorite things about it was so funny. So we were visiting Andre's church, and we were, down there in Dallas, and we drove out to Plano. One of the favorite things, it was so funny. We asked to see their messiest room, basically. Andre did not obviously invite us to see this room, but guys, can I see in there? And it was like, it kind of, you could tell it was a children's ministry room, and all these things were out. But what we really noticed were all the whiteboards that were out that had to do with planning and plans for discipleship of the volunteers and creating leaders upon leaders. And that was just so impressive. And it makes me think today, how often do we really focus on creating leaders out of our volunteers instead of just worker bees, but children's ministry ambassadors who are going to go forth and do amazing things for his kingdom? Daniel, chime in on this. What does a healthy volunteer culture look like to you?
For me, it looks like longevity. Like when I have the same ones coming back and coming back and coming back, I'm like, they're not coming back to fill a spot because I don't want you here to fill a spot. They're coming back because they're called. And, you know, we've done all the things where we've walked the kids through the sanctuary. Any manipulative thing to get volunteers, you know, we've tried them. But when you sit back and you wait for God to call and they come back, and not only longevity, but that second mile for me, like the volunteers that are going, you know, and spending time outside the church walls. And like, you know, kind of like Andre said, like they're there for discipleship. Like they're coming up to me with the stories and, ooh, I've got this idea because, you know, I want to take it the next level. Or the teacher that I'm like, are you going to come back next year? She's like, I've learned more in this kids class than I did any adult class. Yeah, I'm coming back. But, you know, to where they're growing, you know, and coming back over and over. And we call our volunteers investors because I'm like, you're not just filling a spot. You're like truly investing in eternity. And we want to bring that to a higher level because this is a calling. And so, you know, those years I've had a lot drop out, I have to look and go, okay, what happened? Maybe it's a season thing, but how can I nurture to where that longevity is there? So.
Absolutely. I love it, the longevity. And Dale, I'm gonna throw a curveball at you because if you know Dale Hudson, he has like books. I know, like he has like books on volunteers. But I want to throw a curveball. I mean, really in the same vein and in the same question, because we're talking about what does it look like to have a healthy volunteer culture. Dale, in your experience, what does it look like to have an unhealthy volunteer culture that maybe some of us have been guilty of before? What does that look like?
I think it would be the opposite of what I was going to say. By the way, I don't know how much time we have, but I got tickled this past weekend. The pastor told me he was up speaking. They had a countdown clock in the back that he could see. And he asked the sound guys, how much time do I have left? And this little boy looked back and saw the clock and yelled out, 0!
Well, we got
anyways, okay. Okay. Well, I think that a culture doesn't happen by accident. A healthy culture is created. Yeah. It doesn't just happen, it's created. So I think there's 3 big elements that I've tried to have in a volunteer culture. And the first is faith. Because we're not called, you look in the Bible, it doesn't say, we're not called, Jesus didn't say go and make volunteers of all the nations. He said go and make disciples of all the nations. Yeah. And when we bring people on our team just based on what we can get out of them or what we get from them, then it's going to be unhealthy. But if we flip that and we say, I want to bring you on the team, this is about what I want for you. Because you're going to grow in your faith when you serve, right? You're going to get closer to Jesus. You're going to be like Jesus, who served. His whole life was 2 words, serve and give. And so the opposite is bringing people on the team just because you need a spot filled. I mean, how many times do we ask people, okay, where do you want to serve? What do they always say? Wherever you need. And temptation is to put them where you need them, even if it's not lined up with their gifts and their talents and their calling. So don't put people where you need them. Put people where they need to be. And that's something that lines up. So I think unhealthy is when we place people in roles they're not really gifted to. And a couple things will happen. They'll either quit or they'll have a lot of character and go the distance, but they won't enjoy it. It'll be like drudgery to them. And so first thing is not having a culture of faith. And then family. Try to create this culture of family where we're a family. We do this together. It's our life that we live together. One of my best at one of the campuses, one of my best leaders, I would go to her. She was a preschool over that campus. I would go there and she would always have every room with more than enough volunteers, smiling, happy volunteers. And I pulled her aside and I said, okay, what are you doing so we can pass this on to the other campuses? How are you creating this with these volunteers? And she said, well, Pastor Dale, I don't have volunteers. I have friends. And I was like, there's the secret right there. That's why her rooms are full of volunteers and they're always smiling and happy. And so creating this culture of family, unhealthy would be where you do your time, you serve and you're out of there. You don't do any activities together. You don't, do life together. So a culture that would not be full of family. And the last thing is just fun. Faith, family, make a culture of fun, man. Make it fun to serve in kids ministry. And you walk in a lot of kids ministries, they look like they're not really enjoying it that much. The person at the guest services is like, okay, don't bother me today, but I know you need to check in. So I would say those three things. You want to have a culture of faith, a culture of family, and a culture of faith. The opposite of that is unhealthy.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Dale, I love everything that you said, but it really reminded me because I mean, we're talking about discipleship and trying to create discipleship, and I'm actually doing a study now called Breathe. By Priscilla Schreier about kind of pulling back. And I think one of the temptations is, well, I'm too busy to disciple these leaders. I don't have time to do this.
Yeah.
Even though it's so important, we can't afford not to disciple and to build and to invest in our leaders. But there's something so important that I think that you said. So I'm going to skip around and throw things around because I really think that you spoke, Dale, in particular to ministry aspirations, right? In ministry. And when we get people, who cares about your ministry aspirations? I need someone in the preschool room. Pronto. Okay, so I want to dig into that because I think that is so important when it comes to people come to us. They have aspirations. So what can we do? Because you mentioned it, I think that is so important. So I'm just going to go there. Help us for people who are listening, who are watching, who may be struggling, because we push this message of flexibility, right? In children's ministry, we need to be flexible. We really need you to be flexible. But what happens when we I think at times we can cross over those margins and the boundaries of flexibility, and now we have someone in a place where they just don't belong, where they're not happy. And you're right, Dale. What do? They end up leaving. Speak to the person who, or to the leader, when it comes to honoring those margins, when it comes to ministry aspirations of our people.
I think you can do it just by asking one question. As you're interviewing them and getting them on your team, just say, what's your dream job at church? If you could do anything you wanted, what would it be? And they'll usually tell you what their gifting is. Mm-hmm. I remember a guy came in and he was going to be a small group leader for 4th and 5th grade boys. As I was talking to him, I knew I had to ask him the question. I said, let me ask you this. I know you're going to work with the kids, but what's your dream job? And he said, well, to be honest, I really love teenagers. I'm really passionate, but I know you have an opportunity in 4th and 5th, so I'll do that. I could have went ahead and said, yeah, okay, and put him in there, but I would have been doing him a great disservice. And so I said, no, let's go down and meet the youth pastor. You talk with him because that's your sweet spot. So I asked him that question, what's your dream job? I had another guy that had been coming to church about a year. I'd seen him in the hallways, got to know him a little bit. And big guy, Division I football player, was going to go to the NFL, but it just didn't work out. So he's a very, very successful businessman. And I talked to him. I said, hey, I'd love you to serve with us. And I said, here's a list of all the serving opportunities. And let's meet again in 2 weeks. You tell me, you pray, you tell me what area you feel like God wants you to serve in. So 2 weeks later, we sat down. I'm looking at this big old guy, ex-football player, looking at him. I said, okay, where do you want to serve? And he looked at me and said, I want to serve, real deep voice, I want to serve in the nursery. I was like, what? Are you sure? I said, man, I really was hoping you'd do 4th and 5th grade boys. He said, my kids are grown and I love babies. I'd love to just go in the nursery and hold those little babies and help take care of them. And I said, okay, let's give it a try. Honest truth. You know what they call him now in the nursery? The baby whisperer. When they have a baby that's upset, that can't calm, they give him to Dwight and he holds them in his big arms and just calms them down. We had Saturday night service and he was in Chicago on business and got up that Saturday morning. We had a Saturday night service. He got up that morning and looked at his calendar and realized he had signed up to serve that night. But he's in Chicago. The dude goes and jumps on a plane, flies from Chicago all the way down to West Palm Beach, goes and serves in the nursery. After that, gets back, goes back on a plane and flies back to Chicago to finish his work. There's a dude that's in his sweet spot. And so by doing that, helped him find a sweet spot. I'll tell you what else, just closing out on this story, it's amazing. He had one little girl that he just loved and adored. After one of the services, when her parents came to pick the little one up, he gave them a check to cover her entire college education one day. I was like, wow. I had a 20-year-old son at the time. I said, I'm going to dress you up like a baby and you're going to go down and get to know Dwight. But that's just an example of just asking, what's your dream job?
And just the potential of actually putting people in their sweet spot. And Andre, Danielle, I'm going to shake you guys up a little bit. I know, for our webinars, I like to send out some questions ahead of time, but sometimes I like to shake it up a little bit. We're talking about putting people, in their ministry aspirations and really thinking about that. But what happens? Okay, because this happens, right? What happens if maybe someone thinks that they belong in an area that you have discerned in the spirit that they do not belong in that place? What? I know you faced this before. What do you do, Andre? Chime in on this one.
It's fun. I think one, I'm trying to think of a story there, but I don't know if you can't share those. So one, I think culture is king.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think as you teach culture, it helps have those tough conversations.
Yeah.
And so a failure of mine is I didn't do the tough conversations, put somebody in a bad place, let them sit there and think that they were winning. And the whole ministry is now horrible. Volunteers are leaving all because I didn't take the time to set the culture, to set the expectations. And so they're measuring whatever they want and determining what the wins are. And so culture, set your wins. And, if you're in a crisis, a lot of times you just throw people in the game and then say, go.
Yeah.
And so they're just like, I don't know what to do, but I'm doing it and it's working. And then you come back on the backside and they feel like you have just like derailed them because you taught them nothing.
Yeah.
And so there's the right way to do it, which is all that culture wins. And then there's the bad way, which the conversation can be harsh.
Yeah.
I got one. There's a guy who served with us, and somehow he got on our kids guest services team. And we're people first, we're others first, we're go the extra mile, we're greet. He didn't do any of that, and he would just kind of like sit by the kiosk, and he'd be like, everything's good. So there was little tests like, hey man, do you mind vacuuming over here? And he'd do like one corner, he'd get tired. All right, cool. Hey man, I want you to go to the furthest part of our building. I want you to greet down there. No, this is my spot. No, I want you to go there. So then over there, way over there. And so the conversation, and he didn't like it, and I didn't set it on the front end, but also, hey man, these are our values, and here's what we're doing, and it's not really aligning. Mm-hmm. So I'm more than happy to help you find the place where God has you, but this right here isn't working right now.
Yeah.
And it was a tough and a tense conversation that I wish I had done the front part of culture, training, all that, because then he would have already known, because we would have had a conversation. What do you think? How's it going? All that. So that's ultimately what it ended up with, saying, hey, go. And then I had to apologize because he told the whole church that I was mean. I kicked them out. No, legit. Like, I had to go apologize. I'm like, I'm not apologizing. So there was a heart issue that I had to work on there too.
I love this. This is real children's ministry talk here with Child's Heart, okay? Danielle, chime in on this. What do you think about this? The ministry aspirations.
Yeah, I love how, you talk about the, here's the bar, and, we give ours, like, here's the job description. This is, I was even talking to one of my coworkers today, even about our interns. I'm like, we should have handed them all like a toilet brush when they started. And if you won't clean a toilet with nobody watching, are you really ready to serve? I mean, it is selfless service. And, we're trying to teach that on kids that want to go into ministry, but setting that bar, and, I've had those people in those places because, hello, you didn't have anybody, Yeah. And, I think comes times we've got to model that, where we bring us along some inner training, or amazingly, our staff does a fun thing where we go teach through the rooms, to model some teaching to help grow. But front end is best. But if I have somebody that's coming to me that I know, I'm going to find every other service position in the church and be like, hey, you've got a heart to serve. Let's, have this conversation. Kind of what Dale said, but let's find some other areas. But Andre's right. If you don't get it on the front end, it stinks in the middle or the back end.
Yeah. So
and Esther, can I add something to that?
We need to have courage, right? To face, and I think that's definitely something that we could struggle with in children's ministry, with confrontation, but it is so important. I love how you're saying, just do it. Just face it at the front end, and you don't have to do it by yourself. Invite the Holy Spirit to come in and do it with you in situations like that. That can be so tough, you guys. We're going to keep moving this along. You know what I love during this webinar? I love how we're like going like this, and we're writing, like we're taking notes. what each other are
Taking
saying.
notes right here on my thing as people. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm like sitting here writing because we are all here to grow and to learn together. So if you have any input, please go ahead and share. Tony, I see you. Kathy, I see you. Whatever it is, go ahead and share because we are growing together. We are growing and learning from you as well and from your experience. It is just as important as ours. But I want to keep this working with volunteers train going. So I want to ask you guys, and maybe, I mean, come on, we got Dale, Andre, Danielle. Maybe you guys were born out the womb being amazing leaders when it comes to volunteers. But I want to ask you, when it comes to, volunteers, and really working with volunteers well, do you think that is a skill set? Or is it just, hey, you were born with that gift, you need to walk in that? Or is it a skill set that can kind of be developed over time? What do you think? Dale, chime in on this one first.
It's definitely something, I always tell young children's leaders I would spend a lot of time learning how to interact with people, being emotionally healthy and have wisdom in that area. So important. Tell me again what I was talking, we were going to talk about.
Working well with volunteers, even though, Dale, what we said was, even though we know you were born.
Oh, no.
I'm an amazing leader with volunteers. Talk to us who were not.
No, everything I know, I learned by doing things wrong. When I give people my books, I say, here's the book. I learned all this by making mistakes. Here's just an example. I used to be like, I would recruit people from need or from a sense of like the Titanic, we're going down, help. And one time we were 2 weeks away from Vacation Bible School and I still needed 20 teachers. So I went to the pastor and said, would you please get up and at the end of the service say, Dale needs 20 more volunteers, meet him up front after the service and he'll get you signed up. So I was all excited. Service was dismissed and I was down front. And guess how many volunteers I got? 0. They all ran from me. They avoided eye contact. And I learned that you don't recruit people through desperation. You do it through vision.
Yeah. That's so good.
Nobody was going to line up and change a diaper, but they will line up to change a life. And so recruiting through vision is a huge part of that. I really believe getting people on your team. Did I answer that?
It did. It was great.
A little bit.
Oh my goodness, Danielle, what do you think? Talk to me about this. I mean, yes, I know you're another one who is potentially going perfect.
No. I mean, I didn't seek out doing this. I have a mass comm degree. I had other plans, and God said, "You're going to do this." So I'm like, I call myself the dumb disciple. Just call me Peter. Let me mess it up, and then learn. But yeah, I think I have learned that I can get cart before the horse. So busy in the programming that I forget the people. And even now, you add COVID on top of that and we're just trying to survive and doing digital. And, I was so convicted of, wow, we really took care of our kids on digital, but how well did I take care of my volunteers who were not getting, so just, and so I've learned from doing wrong and I have to be intentional. Like, so, with our team, we started a chart, this year and I've got my interns doing it, all of us, here's all the names every month, I'm going to make this many calls, but interns, you're going to reach out too and tell them what you see in them. But I've got to make some intentional steps because I can get so, busy doing that. I'm like, I'm not, pouring into them enough to build the friends, like your person said, Dale, the friends instead of just the workers. But yeah, I think it has definitely learned because I'm still learning, that intentionality, and I've got to stop and constantly evaluate, why did you leave? Oh, you weren't getting fed. We lost some like that during COVID. They got in a online, life group class when we weren't meeting in person, and now they don't teach any. And I'm like, okay, they found something there that they weren't getting, and so I think, I've got to ask myself the hard questions and constantly reevaluate. So I think it's a growth thing. So, but some people are born with it, like Dale.
Or Andre.
No, not at all. I'm like Danielle. I am a social butterfly, but the downside of that is relationships aren't as deep as they need to be because military brat, all that. So I'm just boom, I'll go, but I didn't know anything about people. And so there's a danger to that because I think people truly want to be known.
Yeah.
And if everything just surface level, then you really can't dig up and grow there. So
Yeah.
it's definitely learned, it's definitely modeled. And I think the only reason that I'm here is because people modeled it in my life. So, and anytime I tell people a story, I always go to names. So Carl is one of the first guys that I met in ministry who was my hype man. Like that's what we did. Pastor Brenton was my mentor who I got a chance to see his life. We did dinner together with him and his wife and all that. Tina, who now I just hired her on staff, which is so funny, was one of my leaders. And I remember that she wrote me a letter. She wrote me a letter and it said, "Oh my gosh, I appreciate you." And that meant the world. And then just other guys in the ministry as well that discipled me, walk alongside me. And it got to the point where kind of what Dale said earlier is that, Jesus didn't call you just to serve regularly, like called you to life change, to discipleship. So I had to ask myself the question, like, do I only know these people inside these four walls, or like, do I really, really know them?
Yeah.
And so we spend time outside of the church. I had our student team over last 2 Fridays ago, and we just barbecue is the easy way to people's heart. I can't say that. Like if they don't like barbecue, they can't be on my team. But they absolutely can.
You said it.
I'm sorry. But the question I posed to them is, I'm like, dude, we spent the first 45 minutes just talking to each other. Like we're on Zooms every week. I don't know you. And then I asked them a question and said, well, when have you done this for your key leaders? And if you're not doing it for them and getting to know them, they then won't do it for their other volunteers. And so you're going to have a shallow ministry because we thought it took too much time to know people. So figure out rhythms to connect with people and double up, put them in groups.
Absolutely. Oh my goodness. If you're watching, I know that you are getting so much. I'm just getting stuck. I'm not even following the questions anymore because I'm just like enamored with all of the wisdom that is being poured into us right now. But I want to talk to you guys, and obviously we've kind of shared that one of my favorite things that we've just talked about. We have learned through our weaknesses, through our failures, through our mishaps and our mistakes on, how to be good, how to work well, how to be healthy is through those mishaps that we have in ministry. And I think one of the misconceptions, especially when you're doing platforms, you're with the Danielles and the Andres and the Dales. Oh no, they're perfect. They have it all together and everything has been great for them in ministry. And I need to just come and sit at their feet and learn how to be amazing myself because they have it all together. We don't have it all together, not by any stretch of the imagination. So I wanted to ask you guys to tell us about a time on when you learn what not to do when it comes to working with volunteers. Andre, I'm going to have you go first. I'm going to shake it up a little bit.
Oh, I mean, you want this week or just in general? Like today? Because I've got stories.
Like 20 minutes ago?
Yeah, like just now. The one that comes to mind is probably trying to lead everybody the same. And so I have an IT background. I'm more of a here you go, let's go get it done. My military, so you can be very direct at times. And some people need you to go slower. Some people need you just to listen. Some people need that extra oomph. So I had a volunteer, she's one of our leaders, and she was like, "Do you like me?" What do you mean? And she's like you never check in on me or anything.
Wow.
And I was like, because she was killing it.
Yeah.
So in my mindset, if you're killing it, you're good. But what she just needed was attaboy, it's good. I see you. And that was it. But I was just leading everybody the same. So you're good over here, you're good over there, you're good over here. Tough conversation here. And some people just need to be led differently. And so when you talk about emotional health, those relationships, all that, I knew nothing about that whatsoever. IQ, EQ, Enneagram, none of that. I was like, everybody is a 7. Everything is fun.
Yeah.
And if you're not a 7, I don't know what to tell you. But I learned the hard way.
I love it. Danielle, tell us about something that you learned the hard way, like Andre is saying, on what not to do with volunteers.
Well, this 7 would like to say amen to you, Andre. I also want to, Tony's killing it over here with the quote she put, that I think leaders should be willing to do any job they ask of a volunteer. Like, and so that kind of goes along with mine. Like, we don't want our volunteers to wait till the last minute and be frantic and going around. And this was a time where I was so caught up in the ministry.
Yeah.
I was having a conversation while doing a million things with a volunteer, and being a, sarcastic, silly 7, I said something off the cuff because I thought we were playing, but I was too busy. I should have been prepared so that when the volunteers got there, they were my focus, not any other thing. And, I had to go sit at the kitchen table with him, went to his house, and hey, I was wrong. I was, forgive me, that was wrong. I didn't take your, so for me, I want to do my job as much as I can before they get there, so that when they're there, they're my focus. And the mornings that fires are going to come up. They're going to come up, no matter how hard you work ahead. But when I'm not like that, they're getting half of me, and I'm not modeling what I want them to be. Like what Tony said, like prepared and ready. I want them to focus on the kids. I don't want them cutting out, 4 things when the kids are walking in. So that's what I've had to learn, because I'm a visionary. I don't like all those details. So I have to force myself to sit down and let's get these ducks in a row. So when they walk in, I'm pouring in them like I want them to pour in the kids.
So it takes self-discipline, right? To pull ourselves back.
Yes.
Really lean into that. Dale, I am dying to hear what you have learned, what not to do when it comes to working with volunteers.
Some of it goes along with what, what we've been talking about. I think in the beginning that my appreciation for people was more for what they could do for me in the ministry rather than who they are as a person. Yeah. So I had to learn to not think people, like if I'm going to thank a volunteer, I'm not going to say thank you for, teaching 3rd grade. I'm going to say thank you for your heart for the next generation. Thank you for caring and being compassionate for the next generation. Kind of a wake-up call. I had one of our faithful volunteers that didn't show up one Sunday. And I found out that his mother had gotten really sick and he had to take her to the hospital, the emergency room. So the next morning I called him, and as soon as he picked up the phone, he said, "Oh, I'm sorry, Pastor Dale, I wasn't there to serve yesterday." And my heart just broke. His first thought was not, Dale's calling to check on my mom and me. His first thought was, oh, here's the guy that we serve with. We missed a week. Oh no. And so I had to realize that I need to show my appreciation and think about them as a person more than what they do, but who they are as a person. And relationships is key. Just like you've been saying, relationships is key. I think the depth of the relationships you have on your team will determine how long people serve with you.
Yeah.
Again, it's that whole family thing, but just learning to thank people, not for what they do or what I can get out of them, but who they are as a person and their heart for God and their heart for kids.
Oh my goodness. I love it. You guys, let's cross over into training. Because and I'm going to ask you, I mean, of course, the question is how important, I think training is important, but I'm going to, let me ask the question in an eloquent way. How important is training in children's ministry when it comes to your volunteers? Andre, how important is training? Is training important at all? Maybe it's fine. Listen, okay. Hey, you 7s, we're going to come together and make this happen.
No. It's absolutely important, because to speak to the 7, if there's no training, then there's chaos, which then means there's no fun, which then frustrates the 7 and turns it into an 8, which then just takes everything out. We're not having any fun. Everybody line up.
Now we're all 8s.
So, that's it. They're like, what happened to that guy? It's like, no. You've got to have it. People want to win. And so I think you've got some people that come in to serve and they say, I've done ministry before, I get it. Yeah. But then you've got a lot of new people to serving, to their faith, to the church. And so, they want to do well. Nobody wants to fail. Yeah. And so in training, I think you set them up to win. Mm-hmm. And for sometimes people that, it's too long. The right things are worth the wait. Yeah. And so if you say, hey, it's going to be a X amount of week process, and you don't want to be a part of, good. I just weeded out somebody who isn't going to be a good fit for our ministry. But if they see this process and they love it, then they're like, you want me to win. You want these kids to win. And ultimately, at the end of this, I will be better because of it. And no, your legal team will also love you for training as well, because nobody likes emails and lawsuits or none of that either.
Danielle, how can we get past this? I mean, I think Andre has made like a great point. I think it's a temptation, to kind of, I mean, let's just kind of, it'll be fine. It's okay. How can we get, for those who are watching or who may be watching later, who may struggle, we know, come on, we go to the conferences. We go to our own trainings and we learn at the trainings on how important training is. But when it comes to our teams, we still don't do it. How can we get past the temptation to not do that?
Well, I think we've got to realize, how they view the church, how they then view God and those that love Jesus. And, first of all, I would say you don't do it alone. If anybody that's working through minors should be doing it. Yeah. So link arms beside you and above you and say, what is our overall plan? This is not just me that's going to do this. And I think that helps, they're doing this with students. They're doing this with, anybody that works with a minor, and set up a thing. Sometimes I love it when somebody's like, I don't want to finish that training. Well, to me, I'm like, well, that's it. The kids are worth it for you to know, this. So that could be a weed out thing. But I think so many times we're like, well, I'm not going to do it because I've got to do it myself. No, you get the whole age group, that works with all the ages, and you come up with one plan and share the load. But I think also, I don't think people know how easy training can be. Mm-hmm. How many people I've called up and said, hey, how much do I have to pay you to do a 30-minute webinar for me to record for my volunteers? And it's amazing how little it is. I record a webinar and, you got to be creative with it. Okay. I'm not going to make you come sit and do childcare. But here's a 30-minute video from Andre or Dale Hudson where he's talking about this, So I think we can get creative with it. It doesn't have to look the whole come to church, sit for 2 hours. But there's so many resources out there and people that you're like, hey, can you give me 20 minutes on a Zoom call, so then I have a video, and then that's archived for anybody that wants to onboard. Here's all the stuff you can watch. So I like to make things harder, so I'm trying to find the easier way.
Danielle, I love it. Dale, talk to us about, another curveball here, but okay, so, I mean, we're talking about, I know that we go through this temptation. Talk to us, if you are in a church, for whoever's watching this or maybe later, and you don't have a culture of training, so okay, what Andre and Danielle and Dale and Esther, that sounds great, but we don't have a culture of training. I feel like if I have a training, no one's going to show up to the training and then I just want to quit. How can we build a healthy culture of training and really persevere, knowing that this is so important in the area of children's ministry and really building ultimately long-term strong team? Speak to that person.
I think you got to bring it. Somebody said the reason people don't go to training is because they've been to one before. One win that I have found that really helped me was I always the pre-service huddle, the time before you start serving. And I know it can be challenged sometimes to get all the volunteers there, but if you just serve Krispy Kreme donuts or something, and a lot of them will come, give away gift cards. But anyways, that 10 minutes, if you're very intentional about that 10 minutes before you start serving, if you meet together, don't just walk in there and go, okay, I'm going to read this verse. Walk in there knowing what you're going to say. Walk in there and plan out, I'm going to do 3 minutes about how to talk to a preschooler. Or I'm going to do 5 minutes. I'm going to talk about how to walk with Jesus, how to grow in your faith. And if you think about it, that's 52 mini trainings that you can do every year. Wow. Will you get them all there? Maybe not. But the ones that you do get there, you can really pour into them, and because they're going to be there already. So I tried to be very, very intentional about those pre-service huddles, to walk in there and know exactly what I was going to say and what I was going to teach on and how I was going to help them, grow through that time. So that's one thing I would emphasize. Take advantage of that pre-service training time.
I love it. I love it. I love it. So,
or even I would just add too, get some extra people to come in and give them a break one Sunday. It's like you said, come out another time, bring some people, some parents or whatever, and they do it, a different style. And then you've already got them there. They're used to coming. I think we think it has to be midweek, night. No, it doesn't. They're already there. They're going to be there when they said they'd serve.
That's good, Danielle.
Take some of those times.
I've done that. You get 100% participation too.
Yeah.
Yeah. That is great if you can pull that off.
I love it, you guys. Okay, so we're training our volunteers. All right, we're trying to create this culture of training. Everything's great. We're trying to be healthy. Wait a second. We think we might need to fire a volunteer. Is there such a thing even? And Andre, I'll let you chime in here first. Is there such thing as firing a volunteer who's technically not really even getting paid to do this, but you need to get rid of them? How do we handle situations like that? And really in particular, situations like that brings glory to God, that really preserves the dignity of everyone involved.
Yeah, I think when Danielle was talking earlier, something popped up to my mind is that when you have that volunteer, people see stars and they also see the toxic volunteers as well. And it's going to deter people from your ministry, because if they see that person is toxic, not doing well, they're going to say, I don't want to be a part of that, because clearly they're going to let that go on. So what else are they going to allow to go on? And so if we are going to protect the culture, we're going to protect the kids, the volunteers, the parents, all of that, then it's on us to have those tough conversations. And I don't know if I was reading this somewhere. And if you're not good at it, then even it was like preface the conversation. Hey man, I need to know, like this is not my strength. So I'm working with it. But there are some things that aren't working here. Or I learned to hear is help me understand what's going on. So small group here, we want you to sit down with your couple kids. Help you understand what you're thinking. Because then I think it can shift to coaching. Yeah. And ultimately that shift out. Instead of just like, hey, supposed to have 8 kids sitting at the table, you're done, get out of here. Yeah. Yeah. Because you still want them to be at the church. And you still want them to be loved. Yeah. And they say what people don't leave church, they leave people. And I don't want to have a trail of tears of people that I've just offended because I didn't take the time to coach them and have those tough conversations. Yeah.
Absolutely. Danielle, chime in on here. I mean, and I love, I'm reading these comments. I love it. It's called redirecting.
I love that one.
Service. How can we redirect, especially with our really stubborn ones? It's so funny. If there was a year where we had a leader, who was used to doing so many things, and they were so stuck in the old way, and they wanted to do, we would have a special Easter event, and they were so set on doing breakfast casseroles, it was so many things. And really, if you don't let me do this, I am going to leave. I've always done this way. How do we deal with those stubborn people that maybe it's time for them to kind of, I'll say this, be redirected. I love this, into another volunteer service.
Well, I would first say if they're doing anything under child protection that's not okay with a kid, we're going to have straight talk and you're gone. I mean, it's a true firing. I want you to be loved and supported and, minister to at the church. But that one but I think one thing I had to learn, because I like things to go like this, but when you come in, to longer, historic ministries, I had to give myself some time. My mentor here was like, because I came in and, there were some very traditional ways of doing things, and kids weren't very active. And I'm like, they're sitting so, and she's like, you teach them. And in 5 years, as you and I can look like at 5 years, I remember she taught for me. I went in a room and I was like, that room is so loud and they're doing an obstacle course and the kids are getting it. And it's, they're doing active learning. And so I think I had to go, okay, it doesn't happen overnight. So with that redirection, I don't want to use the Titanic because it's sinking, but the big ship takes a little bit of time to turn, and I don't want to be like, you stink, but that encouragement, and I can see over time, like I inherited a Christmas cantata not a Christmas, not cantata, but a little thing that third grade did. There was no gospel presentation in it. It was and I would go to the kids that were older and I was like, what do you remember about that when you were in third grade? Well, Sarah got to be Mary and she, there was no fruit of what they learned, So slowly but surely each year, I added a gospel talk, or we switched this on. And within 5 years, we don't do it anymore. We do something else that's more hands-on and, learn. And it's not just because it's always been done, but, so we just redirected slowly. And it didn't have to completely go away, but I was like, where's the fruit in this? We don't need just a show, let's talk through the message. So I think you got to give yourself a little bit of time to, if it's not a dangerous situation. For that to change.
I love that, Danielle. I really think that really gives us an opportunity to show honor too. I think that's so important in children's ministry.
People that have taught longer than I've been alive. I don't, I want to.
Yeah. Who taught maybe longer than you've been alive, who have actually, affected change and have brought children to Christ and, and really pointed them to God. I think it's always important. I think one of our biggest mistakes and mishaps in children's ministry, when we come in and we got these new ideas and we think that we're the wave of the future, we forget to honor those who at one time, what they did, it did work. It was a huge blessing and helped to further the ministry. I think that is so important. And we're able to do that if we take the necessary time and take those little steps, little by little. Dale, chime in on this one. I think that this is so important. What do you think about this?
Yeah, I mean, I've had to let people go a couple times. They were just in the wrong position. Like one person was on the greeter team and she looked like she'd been baptized in pickle juice. That's kind of the way her face looked. She was very unwelcoming. And so I had to sit down and talk with her. 3 words I always try to use for hard conversations is, first of all, just state the fact. In that situation, you're not smiling. New families, they don't feel. And then the second is, how does it make people feel? When these families come in, they feel that maybe that you're bothering them or they're not welcome. And then state what you need for the future. If you're going to stay in this position in the future, here's what needs to happen. If not, we'll help you find another place for that. But yeah, I love what Andrea said. You can't let that go by. The rest of the team they'll know that and they'll see that you're not leading well in that area. So, and it's hard. It is hard, but it has to be done. So that's just kind of the thing I always try to do is just state the facts, state the feeling, and state what you want for the future to happen. For that. But it's all again, it's about relationships. If that person really knows you care about them, they're going to be more open to receiving. And feedback is great. Give feedback. Help people grow before you have to redirect them. And so that's what I'd say about that.
Dale, I know that you love me, so if you ever told me I look like I swallowed pickle juice, I think I could handle it.
No, baptized in pickle juice.
You would thank me for it.
Did I say swallow? I meant baptized. Baptized in pickle juice.
No, that's where it's baptized in. Okay. So, you guys, our time here has been absolutely amazing. I'm looking at the comments at the same time. Tony, I'm loving this. I gave the elementary school teacher a ministry redirection. I love it. She chose the ministry that met less frequently. In the discussion, I empathized with her and affirmed her. A few years later, she asked me to come back to Wednesday nights and has been an amazing ever since. Oh my goodness, Tony, I love it. I love it. I love it. Tony, actually, you guys, is also a dynamic children's ministry leader as well. So excited that you are here and sharing with us today. Tony, as we are preparing you guys to close out, I want you to inspire our listeners with some final thoughts, just that come from your heart when it comes to working with volunteers. Dale, I am going to start with you. Andre, if you could go next, and Danielle, if you can close us out on some final thoughts when it comes to working with volunteers. Wait, you're on mute.
Here's a shameless plug to form there for building great volunteer teams. Available at buildingchildrenministry.com. Thanks, Esther. all the proceeds go to feeding hungry kids, my kids. No, but I think it's so important that we empower people. You know, I always have thought that good leaders are powerful, but great leaders are empowering. And good leaders are stars, but great leaders create stars. And so it's all about getting the spotlight off of you and shining it on people and seeing them grow and do great things for God. You know, if you're really successful, you should be able to step back in the shadows and everything goes smooth. You should be able to be away on the weekend and not have to worry if it's going to fall apart because I'm not there. So just pouring yourself into people, not being a doer, but being an equipper.
Yeah.
Equip the people. So what a joy, you know, you've all experienced it. What a joy to see someone come in and get it and just start growing and thriving and seeing them really using their gifts and talents. So that's for me where the joy is at, is seeing people grow in their faith and become dynamic leaders for Christ. And so it's a joy to be able to pour into people like that.
Absolutely. I love it. Dale, Andre, give us some final thoughts.
First of all, that's just not even fair to have me even follow Dale. Like that was, he should have just closed all out there, Danielle. Another selfless plug. I learned everything from that book right there. I learned everything from the ebook. Our lead pastor, his whole saying right now is this idea of no sideways energy, and we want to enjoy the ministry that we do with the people that are around us. And I think for that to happen, one, you've got to have people that are ahead of you that you're learning from, and that whether that's Instagram groups, whatever, you got to have people that are ahead of you. Two, Esther, you've done a phenomenal job. Like, you're a great friend. You connect with people. So who are the people that are around you in ministry that you can connect with? Everybody has problems. So reach out to somebody, get a group, figure out what you're doing. But then you need to have people that are behind you as well. So who are you training up? Because there's excitement when there's somebody who's learning and has that passion, and you may be in a rut, but that person's asking questions. They're like, let's get it. And you're like, I know why I do it. So you've got to have those people ahead, aside, and behind you. And all three of those, I think, help you thrive in ministry.
I love it. I love it. Danielle, leave us with some final thoughts.
Yeah, I just started studying Matthew in my Bible study. We were looking last night at the genealogy of Jesus and the names that were in that we would never pick, prostitutes and, just who Jesus used, like who God, from the beginning planned to use. And I think all four of us would admit right now, the fact that he uses us when he can do it so much better. I always say you could do this so much better if you would just bypass me, Lord, and just do it. But the fact that he uses us, what a gift that is to help then it's worth it. It's worth it. He uses us, these volunteers. Hey, he could teach your class better than you, but he chooses to use you as a broken vessel. And I was just wowed again. I'm like, I shouldn't be in the list for him to use, because I know me, I know my heart, but he does. And he does the volunteers. And I think helping them see that's where the glory is. Like, we get to see his glory because he uses us, and we have to do it in his strength. So I think being wowed over and over again about just the honor and the privilege it is, because he could do it better without us, but he chooses to use us. So that keeps me going. So
I love it. I love it. Hey, Dale, can you put the link in? It was so funny. Someone's asking for the link to the ebook.
I don't see how to put comments in. Can you tell me how to do that? Or
I will do that for you. What is the link? It was funny because Dale actually moved the camera.
Sorry.
This is why you can. Dale will always be needed in the area of children's ministry.
You can just go to buildingchildrensministry.com and get it. Or it's on Amazon as well.
Okay, awesome. Buildingchildrensministry.com, and we will get that on that. You guys, I am just so. I think I got it. Buildingchildrensministry.com. I am so humbled and honored that you all have joined us today, and really, Dale, Andre, and Danielle, thank you for pouring so much wisdom into us. I know that we have gone through obstacles in this season. And I feel like that there's this spirit of weariness, but I'm like, we need to wake up because there's a generation out there that still needs us. There are leaders who God has called to serve the next generation who need us. So I'm so excited for all that you do to pour into leaders constantly. I am so grateful. I am grateful for you. Hey, if you are watching and you know a friend who didn't get to watch, please go ahead and make sure you get them connected to this so that they too can be poured in as much as we were poured into this evening. Next month, we are doing children's ministry administrative do's and don'ts, which is also another important topic in children's ministry. So thank you guys for being with us tonight. Kathy, I see all of you guys. You're so amazing. And we will see you again next month. Same time, same place. Thanks, guys.